So let's do a thought experiment. When you imagine something in your mind, how closely can you have that experience resemble the actuality of whatever you're imagining? Right? How closely does your mental simulation resemble the actual activity that you're imagining, that you're simulating? Right? So if you play hockey or darts or something, let's say you're throwing darts, and you can feel the dart in your hand, you can see the board. You know, there's some old classic rock song on in the background, right? You're imagining a scenario that has perhaps happened before, or maybe it hasn't happened exactly, but what you're conjuring is ultimately a patchwork of things that have happened and things that haven't quite happened but could happen, or again are similar enough, right? It's a shape-shifted version of something that you have experienced or could experience. A blend of memory and perspection. Okay, how much of that could you say that you experienced? Right? So let's say you spent that whole weekend playing darts in your mind, right? You imagine yourself all weekend playing darts. And so you did nothing else. You just ate and played imaginary darts all weekend. You go to work on Monday, and Susan asks you, "So what'd you do this weekend?" And you know, would you say that I played darts? Or if you said, "I imagine myself playing darts all weekend," would she immediately say, "Oh, I guess he played darts all weekend." I guess he played darts all weekend. How much of your imagination of things is real? Is it dichotomous? Is something exclusively imaginary and then other things are exclusively real? Right? Exclusively, what do you mean by real? Well, let's say they're based in sensory motor experience. They're based in peripheral nervous system data inflow and outflow. Right? Whereas something imaginary, you could say, is more contained to the mental landscape. When you're imagining yourself playing darts, you might have activation of different brain regions that are associated with the actual playing of darts, right? You might have even parts of your primary motor cortex might be lighting up a little bit with regards to the arm muscles that would be called upon in a regular dart throw. With regards to the auditory, parts of your auditory cortex can be activated. Parts of your premotor your premotor cortex could be activated in terms of the planning of the movement, seeing the dartboard, right? So really all these different brain regions that would be active in a regular dart play, you're now conjuring them mentally. So yes, there is a distinction with regards to the physical body, but where does experience happen? Where does our awareness of the experience happen? Is it in our minds, or is it in the physical experience of the world? Right? How much of what we are able to imagine is actually happening? Like, would you say that you went and played darts all weekend if you imagined? I reckon the answer is no. You'd kind of be a bit of a strange cat if you went to work on Monday and you didn't specify that you imagined playing darts. You just said, yeah. Say you imagined all weekend. You go to work on Monday with Susan, and you say, "Yeah, I played darts all weekend." No, you would specify, "Yeah, I imagined myself playing darts," and Susan would say, "Oh, I guess he didn't actually play darts." Okay, so that is the regular understanding of this dichotomy, right? We actually frame it as a bit of a dichotomy. Something is either imagined or real in regular parlance. regular parlance, regular conversation. But is that accurate? Is that accurate? You know, what about experience is localized or is localizable? Because if you say, oh, no, that's not real. Imagination is not real. Well, what constitutes real then? What constitutes reality? What has to happen? What are the criteria that have to be in place for you to say, I actually did it? Because by my logic here of you saying to Susan, yeah, I imagined myself playing darts, and her saying, okay, yeah, he imagined it, so it didn't really happen. Well, it's presupposed then that when you say, oh, I played darts all weekend, Susan has this implicit understanding that you literally took a sharp piece of metal in your fingertips, so your fingers were involved. You threw the dart at the dartboard, so your arm was involved, right? So your elbow was involved. So there's a kind of presupposition of musculoskeletal involvement of real experience. Reality seems to constitute a kind of musculoskeletal basis. Maybe you say, well, what about things like music? Well, it's auditory, right? You're taking in things from the external world. So that's really the crux of it. How much of our interfacing with the external world is required for something to cross the imaginary threshold and be termed real? But I've got to go mail my tax papers now.